Hi everyone. Today I'm joined by my good friend Martine Campbell.
Are we
But
starting?
first,
Did we just start?
yeah.
Oh shit! Sorry. Should we do it again?
Yes, of course. Well, let's try that again. Hi everyone. Today I'm joined by my good friend Martine Campbell,
Hello.
a first-year physics student and aspiring future astronaut. Today we're going to discuss all things existential from the origin of the universe to the very end of it. So, as such, it is only befitting to start at the very beginning. So, Martine, or Miss Campbell, we're just going to get straight to it. What
Okay.
came before the Big Bang? What do you think came before the Big Bang? Alrighty, so obviously this is an open question up to your imagination right now because you don't have the answers, or else you wouldn't be here right now. You'd probably be at
Right.
Nobel Minds 2020 getting your
Yes,
Nobel Prize.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you will get one in the future.
I
We'll
hope
see.
so too.
But let me start with what I feel like the common idea shaped for this question is right now in the physics community, which is, if time itself began with a Big Bang, then how could we even ask this question to begin with? Because the era of time itself would have not existed. So it's not possible. Or is it possible? I feel like this is a hardly satisfying theory because we don't know the answer. And this is an attempted guise at explaining it by just saying, oh, you know what, the era of time did not exist, so we can't even ask this question. So what do you think about that? And do you think this is one of the cases where we have this analogy which we call the ant-hypothesis?
I was just thinking about the ant-hypothesis.
Do you want to explain what that is to our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, I actually had two trains of thought. The first is that we're talking about time and how time couldn't have existed before the Big Bang. But if you look at a lot of different philosophers, a lot of them believe that time is just a construct and a human thing. So I don't know if we can exactly use time in this scenario because we're not even sure if time really truly exists.
But doesn't that just show a huge flaw in basically everything, since we have based the space-time continuum concept to every single human created physics law ever?
Absolutely. I mean, it's thinking about time, especially in this way, is really difficult because time makes sense to us and it's so familiar to us. We base our life around time, but there's still a lot that we don't really know about time. And when you think about the definition of time, it's really, really hard to describe. When I took grade 12 philosophy, that was, I forget who it was, but I think he was a religious figure. I can't exactly remember who because it's not really important to my life right now to have that memorized. But one of his ideas about time, or something that he said about it, was nobody can exactly describe what it is. So that's, part of it that makes it difficult to think about what came before the Big Bang because that involves time. And it also reminds me of our ant-hypothesis. And this is kind of something that Yasmin and I were talking about one day. And I've never heard anybody label it anything. I've never heard of this theory before. So we just kind of called it the ant-hypothesis. And I think we were just talking on the school bus one day and we just kind of came up with it. Yeah. So basically it's where, we as humans are trying to talk to ants and we say to them, or we try to explain to them the concepts of physics, the concepts of mathematics, our way of life. And we try to articulate that to them in any way possible. An ant will never understand. We will never be able to get through to them just because
it goes over their head.
It completely goes over their head. There's different levels of intelligence. There's no way to communicate our ideas and our human constructs to an ant. Likewise, I think there are a lot of concepts and a lot of things that exist in the universe that we as humans will never be able to understand. And even if some higher powered being tried to explain these to us, I don't think it would ever register with us. We just wouldn't have the capacity to even understand it. It's kind of like, how a lot of people think aliens exist. I mean, obviously there's so much evidence for there being extraterrestrial life forms, and it's very, very, very possible that they do exist. But if they tried to make contact with us, how could we be sure that we would understand their way of communication? They could be sending all of these signals, but because it's way past our level. We just, wouldn't even know they're there. They could be all around us. It's just, we're the ants and the aliens are humans. Yeah, exactly. But that's a very loaded question. I really, I have no idea what could come before the Big Bang. It's almost like asking someone, try to imagine another color. You can't. You can't. So there's nothing I can personally think of that would have come before it. I genuinely have no idea.
Or perhaps it could be like the times before our birth where we don't know what happened before we were born. And we don't remember, and it's irrelevant to us. Yeah. It's just a state of nothingness, or a state where we don't remember what happened there. That could possibly be something. But I think it's definitely wise for scientists, especially to just say, I don't know, when you don't know.
Yeah, definitely, to say we just don't know. And I think even if we found out, or if we could determine the answer to this question, would we want to know it? Because there's again, two parts to this. It's like the more we solve, the more questions we now have to ask. Like when you solve one problem, it leads to a million other problems. And then, when we do find the answer to that problem, what if we don't like that answer and it's devastating for all of humanity? It's like if we were to search for God and to see if heaven really exists and if there really is a God, and when I say God, I don't just mean the Catholic definition of God. I mean, whatever religion kind of has a higher power being, or, there are different gods, like you have Allah, you have all these different constructions of God. But if we were to determine whether or not he's real, whether or not this being is real, and whether or not heaven and afterlife exists, if we don't like the answer to that, what will happen for human life? It could end in chaos. So, it's kind of scary to pursue these answers, and you have to think about whether or not it's worth it to know what came before. Yeah.
And that's one of the cross sections that you get, especially when you get into physics, because people, especially physicists, oftentimes they really set the line of like, okay, I'm an atheist, for instance, and I won't even consider that possibility. I'm just going to look strictly into science.
At the science, yeah.
But we have to come to terms with, what's the science might not be an explanation.
Able to explain. There's so much.
Because it's dependent on our human intelligence.
Yeah.
And it is not inclusive of alien intelligence or divine intervention or things of that nature.
Yeah, so science will never be able to explain everything. And, being a physics student and believing completely in science, I'd still like to think that there is something out there. I mean, as a human, it's hard not to think that there is a plan for us, and that, there's more beyond this life. I think it'd just be morbid to think that there's nothing beyond this planet, and it's just
we are born
pitch black.
To die.
Yeah, to think about life in such a mundane way is just, terrible. I'd like to think there's something after. I just have no idea what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's head into the deeper depths, which is what is inside a black hole. Tell me.
Wow.
Oh my God, what did I say? So I'll just give some background, even though you don't need it. We know that black holes are areas of space where gravity, for some reason, exerts an enormous pull on basically anything surrounding it, and nothing can escape its force, whether that's light or any other signal or any other kind. If we don't get into the nitty-gritty physics of what a black hole emits with like Hawking radiation and all that, let's just say that nothing can escape. And since nothing can get out, what do you think is fundamentally inside that singularity, perhaps, of a black hole? Do you think that there's a gate to Narnia? Do you think that it's a portal to essentially another world like that one? Or just, again, a situation where we met with, it's a situation before the era of time exists kind of thing, where we're just like, you know what, I don't know.
Yeah, again, similar to the previous question, I personally can't even begin to fathom what's
But what do
inside.
You think is inside?
What do I think? Okay, well, just looking at the different regions of a black hole, we know that everything, light and matter gets compressed into a single point called a singularity. And every time we've tried to mathematically define the singularity, it results in infinity. So we can't describe the conditions and precise location of a singularity yet. It always results in infinity. So I know, what we have so far, the singularity is, I guess, the furthest that we've gone in terms of understanding a black hole, like in terms of the regions of a black hole. Past the singularity, like what happens to objects inside. Like I know that everything gets shredded and destroyed, but yeah, I can't even begin to guess.
For me, I have some speculations of my own.
Okay.
I think that at the center of if we can define, let's just say that there's
past
a center.
The singularity, right?
Like ignoring the asymptotic behavior of a singularity with infinity.
Okay.
Or maybe just infinity itself. I don't know. This is getting abstract. But I feel like I read this somewhere, but each piece of data, so we know when it goes past the event horizon of a black hole, it gets spaghettified, and then the form of the matter changes or something like that. But the data itself is always stored. For some reason. I read this somewhere, I'm not sure if it's true.
The data is stored.
But let's just imagine, like the molecules that contain the data for the thing that it coded for in space, so say a carbon molecule or a nitrogen, blah, blah, blah. That data still gets stored in the molecule, but it gets warped into some different form when it goes through the spaghettification process, right?
Right.
But that data is still there. So I feel like at the singularity of a black hole is just an endless repository of just misconstrued data of things that were out there in space and got sucked into it. So when you go in, if you don't die, hopefully.
I think you probably would.
Yeah, you probably would.
Most likely.
You would just basically be in a space of just infinite knowledge. See, this I want a philosophical spin to this.
Okay.
I don't accept that data just gets spaghettified and everything is lost. Right.
I mean, my personal belief is that, after things are past the singularity, everything just gets completely ripped to shreds. I mean,
but energy cannot be destroyed. Energy can only be converted or transferred.
Energy can only be converted, but it doesn't mean that, light and matter doesn't get, I guess, even though it's destroyed, like it's almost like you put something in a blender, like the fruits or whatever mixture you put into a blender, it's not gone, it's just destroyed and just all I don't know, like you know what I'm talking about, like it's all form. Liquefied, I guess.
That's what I mean by the data is still, there's memory of the data, but it's just different form.
Yeah, like it's all blended together almost.
So what do you think, again, there's no clear answer, but
right.
When a black hole starts to dissipate, and we know this is possible through Hawking radiation, eventually just stuff starts, like the black hole spreads its particles and eventually dissipates. Do you think then that data that has been blended, per se, comes out to the universe and is reutilized? Or what? I don't know.
I mean, because we know through the laws of conservation of energy, we know that, when I say we know the laws of conservation of energy, we haven't exactly been able to test all of these laws really deep into space, but so far, the laws that we know on Earth, a lot of them tend to be universal. I mean, there is like a whole debate on Einstein's theory of relativity, for example, and how it does fail when we look at extremes of gravity. So when you have a lot of gravity or very, very little gravity, his laws fail. And at first we hypothesized that there was just a flaw in his theory and that it was only relative to Earth. But then, now we've looked into dark matter and the discovery of dark matter, and we have had tests that prove the existence of dark matter. So I personally believe that the laws we know and we study are universal. Then again, I'm also a first-year physics student, so I haven't studied everything and I don't know everything perfectly, but from what I've learned, a lot of them do tend to be universal. yeah, so I think the laws of conservation of energy do hold throughout the universe. So it has to be reused somewhere. I don't know where that place is. I don't know how it gets reused, but somehow, somewhere, it should get converted, I believe. Yeah.
I think that's a fair answer.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift to a more okay, these questions are all very
I feel like I'm not even qualified.
Yeah, you're not qualified, but I want
I'm
the
definitely
answers.
not qualified to even
I want to make sure
talk about these questions, or because I'm still very early in my studying. So, everything I talk about, like, I mean, there's a lot that I am confident on talking about, but then there's still some stuff that, I've just touched the surface of. Like, I'm just at the surface level of, a lot of these, because when you go into first year astronomy, and I'm not talking about the fun astronomy that some people take, like when you want to know like a bit about the planets in the universe. I'm talking about hardcore mathematical specialty astronomy. They don't start off with like, Hawking radiation and black holes and all this stuff. They, start you out with, here's a telescope. This is how we use a telescope. This is a parsec. This is how we can measure the distance to the sun. They really start you off with the rudimentary basics of space, and they start you out with, what you can see from Earth. So hopefully, as I learn more throughout the years, I'll be able to answer these questions with more precision.
Follow-up episodes coming soon. Yearly annual feature.
Yeah. No, I wish I could answer more about it and I knew more about these subjects, but in the future, I'm sure I can. Yeah.
I mean, the crazy thing is that a lot of physicists who have spent essentially their lifetimes just researching these questions are still so humble about it, because they have taken essentially a mission to uncover some of the existential questions of our humanity. So it's always good to be humble about it, which I like. So, do you think we are alone in the universe? And we know... No, okay, good. Because we know that there's at least 2 trillion galaxies that only are observable universe. And we talked about this before. But this doesn't account for things that I'm a fan of, which are leading theories about the existence of a multiverse. Yeah, the eyebrows go up when they say multiverse. But yeah, that number would definitely increase exponentially if we did prove the existence of a multiverse.
Yeah.
But what do you think?
So, of course, no, I don't believe that we are alone in the universe. Like, we look at Mars and we can see that there are frozen ice caps. So we know, there have been conditions for life to exist on Mars at some point in time. So it's extremely probable that, there were biological organisms living on Mars. And, with the plethora of galaxies and planets that we have, I mean, I'm 100% sure there are life forms. I mean, it's no question. Whether or not there are intelligent life forms, and whether or not there are UFOs like the ones that we think of when we see TV shows or whatever, that's a bit more of a difficult question, because it's a lot more likely that there aren't intelligent life forms than there being intelligent life forms. Because if you look at the conditions that had to exist on Earth in order for us and other organisms to exist, they're next to impossible. Like we shouldn't even be here right now. Like the conditions for the distance of the star from the planet, the size of the star from the planet, all of these different things.
They're too perfect.
Exactly.
Like the measurements that we see between Earth and just the sun, if Earth was just a little bit closer, a little bit farther,
or slightly tilted,
like by insane minuscule amounts,
really small increments, we'd be gone.
We'd be blazed, or we'd be frozen. Yeah. I mean, it's exactly too perfect, which is what's happening.
Exactly. Like the conditions for life to exist, like everything in the universe is so hostile. And to think about, life forms developing to the level that we are, where we can question our existence and our morality, is really unlikely. So while I don't doubt that there are, UFOs, they're definitely not the ones that we think of, when we watch
movies,
TV or whatever. that's the scientific person in me saying that, because you look at the statistics and it's not likely that we have intelligent beings at our level or higher
that are within our reach, though.
Yes, that are within our reach.
Yeah.
But then also the dreamer in me and the person who likes to think about the possibility of this stuff, you know, I think it would be really cool if that was true. And I mean, I'd like to think that's true. I mean, even my mom, she believes that she's seen a UFO, and I definitely believe her story. And there's a lot of really strange
conspiracies,
unexplainable things in the world, like on our Earth. I mean, we have ancient paintings that literally have designs of cigar-shaped, UFO ships, or I shouldn't say UFO ship, unidentified flying objects. Yeah, that's like kind of redundant to say UFO ships. But there are ancient paintings where you can see UFOs, like the ones that people have been claiming to see, all throughout history. And it doesn't make sense that they would have these ideas, unless they saw this in the sky somehow. So there's a lot of unexplainable things in our world. And I guess the presence of, intelligent aliens, I guess, could explain some of them. Yeah.
I think the same. The size of the universe is just, it would be ridiculous not to consider the probabilities of another life form. And even though we see those environments being hostile, we know that in the very preliminary age of just the Earth, there were very prokaryotic bacteria who were living there in the most hostile of conditions. And we know that some archaebacteria and extremophiles can survive in such crazy conditions. So just from seeing that little influence on Earth, I think it's could be exponentially present in so many different universes and planets. And it's a lot to think about.
Absolutely.
And again, this comes back to the ant hypothesis.
Yeah, exactly. If there were intelligent beings and they were trying to send us signals or trying to communicate with us, would we even have the capability of seeing that and understanding them? Like, they could be all around us. We just can't physically understand them or notice their presence,
And all we can do right now is just keep doing what we're doing.
Keep progressing scientifically.
Yes, sending the rockets out there and doing, I think, what was the probe that got, I think the Cassini probe that had the little gold plate that had data embedded in gold or something like that. They had photos of humans licking ice cream and some Beethoven music and all that. I don't know why in the world you would send a photo of a person eating ice cream to space.
It's a happy image.
If an alien comes and brings contact, but I suppose.
Yeah.
But I feel like those are the dreamer projects that you said that scientists often portray in these fun little missions to, maybe
it's like
find someone out there.
Yeah, even though we know it's more likely that there aren't intelligent life forms that are at our level or higher, I mean, we still like to dream and think that it is possible. And so much on Earth can't be explained with the physical concepts we have and we use. So, and kind of going back to what you were saying about the Cassini probe, right?
Let me Google that. Yeah, go ahead.
I know we also have used hydrogen to send out signals to see if aliens could respond to us, and we haven't gotten anything back yet, but yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm saying the facts, 2020 is going to be the year of facts and not lies. No fake news.
100%. No fake news. We're done with that.
Probe with gold plate. Message to contact outer life. This is it. The Voyager 2 is what I was saying, not the Cassini probe. So it travels through the outer layers of the heliosphere to carry a message for extraterrestrial life in the form of a 6x9-inch gold aluminum plaque designed by Carl Sagan, which we all love, with the Earth poem. That's what I meant. All right, so let's end this existential part with how do you think the universe will end? And To start off, I'm going to give you a good prompt.
Okay.
Or options from
Right.
what we know. So the 4 ways that the universe could end. Your first option is the Big Rip.
Mm-hmm.
And under this scenario, dark energy, which we don't really know what that is. We kind of hypothesize, but essentially dark energy will keep pulling the universe apart at an ever accelerating speed until everything in the universe, including the individual atoms themselves, pull themselves apart. So that's the first option.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is the Big Freeze. Similar to the Big Rip, if the expansion of the universe continues, the planets, the stars, and galaxies will be pulled so far apart that the stars will no longer have access to the raw material for star formation, thus making the lights inevitably go out for good. That's an interesting contender. The third one, which I'm a fan of, no bias, but the Big Crunch. The good news to this one is that the universe is finally able to halt the expansion that is threatening to pull it apart. The bad news for the Big Crunch is that it will now begin to collapse in on itself, potentially sparking another Big Bang. I think that's a good ending. I like that one. The Big Slurp. As the Higgs findings allude to, the universe is likely inherently unstable, which could make way for a vacuum metastability event to occur. I don't even know what that means, but we'll see. Kind of like you being stuck in a vacuum.
Yeah, sounds very interesting. One thing I was kind of thinking of is, when you were talking about the Big Crunch, I wonder if this has happened to the universe
before,
like countless numbers of times. Like, what if we just keep on teeter-tottering between the Big Crunch, Big Bang, Big Crunch, Big Bang, and it keeps happening and happening and happening.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's also another theory that the universe has been created and destroyed multiple times.
Right? Maybe that's why love stories are so popular. Get it? Because like the girl is usually with the guy, then the guy and the girl separate and then they come back.
Right.
So that's the universe that's being embodied through our human behavior.
It all makes sense.
Yes.
Everything is making sense now.
Noble Minds 2020, we're coming.
100%.
Yeah.
If I had to, I guess, weigh in on this, I personally believe that the universe will just continue to expand. Maybe that's just the optimist in me because I don't want to think about our universe ending. It's also like something really scary to think about. So the optimist in me thinks that it will continue to expand.
And no ending, just forever.
Yeah, but also I think the Big Crunch sounds quite plausible, as well as the Big Freeze. I think those two really stick out to me. Yeah.
I like the Big Crunch. I really do, because not only just philosophically, it's nice to just imagine this image of the universe starting from a little point and then ending at a little point. It just seems perfect. And we know that the universe has a certain balance to it, so I feel like this would be the perfect way to honor that. And we know that the universe has always favored entropy, where you're just disorderliness everywhere. At the end, I feel like it would be our experiences as teenagers where our parents would tell us to clean our room and we have to bring it all back together. We clean the room up.
But it eventually gets messy.
Yeah.
And you just keep teeter-tottering between those two extremes.
And then eventually the universe is like, you know what? I need to clean my room. And
it
brings it back in.
Exactly.
And then explodes it back out. Yeah.
So the universe is just like a teenager, basically. Yeah.
That's
makes sense.
Perfect. I mean, we're just making revolutions over here.
Absolutely.
The intersection between human philosophy and space.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the Big Crunch, for sure.
Me too. Yeah, it seems likely.
All right. You heard it here first. So now we're going to get a bit more personal.
Okay, great.
So what made you want to pursue physics?
Okay, well, when I was younger, I never really considered myself to be a mathematical or sciencey type of person, but I took physics in grade 11, and there was just something about it that I really fell in love with, and I think it's because it's like the mathematical language of the universe and how everything works, and you can see it in your everyday lives, and you can apply it to every scenario, and it's amazing that we can describe things that are so stupid and simple, like walking. But, looking at walking, it's friction that allows us to move forwards. Like all of these really cool ways to describe the everyday things we do. And I just think it's applicable to every situation. And also I think the math involved in physics is really fun because because when you're doing calculus, it's kind of hard to see the big picture. Like I think everyone in high school or whatever level you're at has thought, oh my God, why do I have to do this? I'm never going to use this in my life. I mean, we all know that we need to use math in our everyday lives, but it's like, why do I have to create, an equation for a parabola? Like, what is this going to have to do with my life?
You could argue it has to do with everything in your life because math is evident everywhere in life.
Yes.
And you see that, but you're not the one. Again, if you go back to creationism, you're not the one who's creating things.
Yeah, you could definitely say that, but in terms of creating an equation for it, it's like, when am I going to use this ever again in my life? But for physics, when we learn about certain concepts and just, why certain things occur, it is in our everyday life and we use that all the time. So I think it's a lot more clear than math, at least for me. Like, I can see the big picture in physics, and I just think it's a lot more interesting, like I'm sure there's a lot of people who find math more interesting than physics, but I just think it's really interesting to learn about. And the math is also fun behind it. And the other thing too is sometimes the problems are so abstract and obscure. And when you can solve those problems and figure them out, it makes you feel like a genius. Like it's so gratifying because I think math, I can see the pattern between problems, but physics, some of them you just, kind of have to pull the answer sometimes out of nowhere.
Intuition.
Out of intuition. And you really have to think outside of the box to answer a lot of the questions. So it really allows your brain to think in a different way than you normally would. Yeah.
I really like that you said that because a lot of the themes that I've seen with people in higher education has always revolved around evolving the way that you think about things and how you think fundamentally about things in different ways and how you have to quite ironically or just strangely rely on your intuition at times, and that can often provide insight that you could never see with just a simple formula or cheat sheet or something like that. So that's very, very, very interesting. So have you had any goosebump moments when learning physics? And if so, about what? This is a really good question because for me personally, when I just learned about how big the universe is and how small the observable universe is, I was just like,
it takes your breath away,
it's
right?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like that one is a major goosebump moment for me.
Yeah, there have definitely been some moments where, I'm in physics class and all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, like no way, that is so cool. I'm trying to think about some of those moments. I can definitely recall moments I've had in my astronomy class, which also applies the concept of physics. Like we use Kepler's laws and stuff like that, which also is used in physics. I think kinematics, there were some moments where I was just like, oh my God, like this is so cool. Like when we had to do catch-up problems in grade 12, although they're horrible and like so annoying to do, like piecing them together is just really smart and brilliant. And I would see my teacher, do the solutions for them. It's like you have a person going at this speed and then, someone, I guess like a police officer wants to catch up to them. And what time will that happen? And it's just like so cool that you can figure that out. I've also had that moment when learning about electromagnetism.
Oh, I hated electromagnetism.
Yeah, see, a lot of people really hate electromagnetism.
Hate it.
And even our grade 12 teacher was like, okay, this is the hardest physics. Like, you're really going to have to try hard for this one. Like, you need to write study notes and na. And at first it was so difficult, but I have never studied more than I did in grade 12 for like any other topic than I did for electromagnetism, just because it was so hard and there was a huge learning curve for me. But I thought, some of the math behind it was just so cool. Like, calculating things between 2 point charges, like what distance do you place them in order for different scenarios? Like, I just thought that was really, really interesting as well. And also dynamics is kind of cool. Like, this year we actually had to learn about applying torque and rotational motion to different situations. So all throughout high school, they'll give you
linear problems.
Yeah, like you'll have linear, you'll have 2D, but you'll have, like, say for example, a slope and two masses connected by a pulley, and they're on the slopes, and you have to work out something within that system. And they always used to say the mass of the rope is negligible and pretend that the pulley is frictionless. Now we don't have those same scenarios. Like, we're dealing with torque and we're dealing with the rotational motion of pulleys, and it's just like, all these different things. So I think that was also really cool. Stuff. Yeah, that was also pretty cool to learn about as well. Yeah.
That sounds very fun. Very fun.
Sometimes.
Very fun.
Only sometimes. Yeah.
At the end of the day, you are learning a fundamental truth about how the universe works. So
yeah,
it's definitely a admirable initiative.
Yeah.
Yeah,
thank
a lot of people, I'm pretty sure a lot of people cannot say that because physics has
a lot of
quite
people
a
hate
reputation.
It. Yeah.
I loved physics, but just the electromagnetism
all
I did not like at
all that stuff.
all.
Yeah, it does become a little crazy. And I know when my parents' friends would see me and they're asking me about what I'm learning in school, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm taking physics and I love physics. All of them have the same reaction.
Yeah.
Ew. What do you mean? Like, what are you doing? But I mean, it's really good to know it though, because getting a degree in physics, or just taking physics, I feel like you can use that in so many different fields and different careers. Like, you can't go wrong with having some background in physics. Definitely helps. Yeah.
So besides physics, what are most of the courses that you see yourself taking as a physics student?
Yeah, so definitely physics. And the physics that I'm in is, I guess, the more advanced physics in our university. So we do get to learn about space-related physics, which is really cool.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's really cool. Astronomy, definitely. I also think biology is quite interesting, because I'd really like to get a degree in biophysics as well. Math, surprisingly. Sometimes math is fun because you can just, put on your music, have a tea, and just, work on the problems. And it's almost like a meditation sometimes. Like, if my life is getting really hectic, I can just sit down, concentrate, and focus on my problems. And it's like everything outside of that just disappears, because it's like it takes so much mental energy to solve them and just focus on that. So that's also great. I mean, I guess anthropology is interesting. Humanities and sociology and social sciences, they're always interesting and good to learn about. Philosophy is interesting as well. I think just anything I can learn about, is interesting. I think it's great to learn about as many topics as you can learn about, because then you can relate to more people. You can hold a conversation about, almost anything that way.
That's very important.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You don't want to just always talk about
one thing.
Because oftentimes when you look at great thinkers
they're well versed.
Yeah,
right?
Great thinkers often find solutions to things from places that they could have never, expected.
Yeah.
That's very, very nice. I like that, because I was expecting, honestly, I was just expecting a lot of physics and a lot of math, which there is a lot of physics and a lot of math, but
definitely
also the balance of other things of humanities and society credits are very, very nice as well.
Yeah.
So awesome. So which career do you want to pursue in physics particularly? Like, what's on your thought palette right now? What are you looking forward
Oh, God.
Oh,
my God. That is crazy to think about. I feel like I've always bounced between different career paths. Like, when I was younger, I wanted to be an esthetician, and then I wanted to be a nutritionist, and then I wanted to... Esthetician is like nails, hair, makeup, stuff along those lines. Like, I've always wanted to do different things. So who knows? My opinion could change tomorrow, but for the past little while, I would either really like to become a physicist, maybe become a professor and teach physics. Astronaut, absolutely. It's really important to have a basis or a background in physics if you want to become an astronaut. Astronomy, astrophysics. There's a lot of jobs in biophysics as well. Like you can get into AI. And there's definitely a lot of career opportunities like in the medical field because we
nuclear
use
physics.
Yeah, we use a ton of physics in the medical world. Like we use optics for surgical instruments, and so there's a lot of career options in that as well. So something within that realm, definitely.
Which one is the most like? What
appealing?
What would you want to do if the chances were just guaranteed?
Okay,
astronaut.
I think either astronaut or a physics professor.
Physics
professor.
Physics professor.
An astronaut would be really cool, but then you have the danger of dying in space. Although I think by the time I would become an astronaut,
death, though.
It is a good way to die. I guess it's a little bit better than like the death roller coaster or the euthanasia roller coaster. I mean,
oh my god. Okay.
Have you heard about the euthanasia roller coaster?
No.
No, it's like a hypothetical roller coaster that a physicist created, and there's a model of it, and you have 7 loops basically.
7 is like the universal number. It's a very it's like the universe's favorite number. Like it's a lucky number. It's a thing.
That's so interesting.
Like this is not pseudo. It's just a thing that the
7
universe
has always
favors.
been my favorite number. I mean, April 17th, my birthday. Love the number 7.
Yeah,
so
7 is a
makes
magical
perfect sense.
number.
So the euthanasia roller coaster is it's like a hypothetical, and there is a design of it. And I'm pretty sure there's like a model as well, and it's 7 loops, and each loop gets smaller and smaller and smaller, increasing the G-force on a person until the G-force is too much for them to handle and they die. Like on the last loop.
Where is this happening?
It's not happening. It's just like, it was just, I guess, an idea that a physicist came up with because if they designed this roller coaster, it would be a way to allow the person to experience, euphoria and thrill before they have to die.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's another application of physics. But I think dying in space.
Yep.
I think dying in space might be a slightly better way. Both are terrible. Why are we talking about dying?
Because death is imminent.
It is.
That is the deal that we strike when we are born. But then again, we never struck the deal. Or maybe we struck the deal, but we don't remember striking the deal.
Who knows at this point, right?
Yes.
What was I talking about? Becoming an astronaut. Yeah.
Why do you want to be an astronaut?
I think ever since I was little, I've always had this calling, and I felt like there's something big and important that I need to do with my life. And I've also always had a dream of making a huge contribution to the scientific community and becoming a prominent figure within this community.
Miss Campbell. Dr. Campbell.
Hopefully one day. And I also think by the time I would become an astronaut, that this isn't a long time because it takes years and years and years. It would probably be a lot more safe and maybe even commonplace to travel to space. Obviously, like, close to Earth, not in outer space, but...
What?
No,
Why?
I mean, I don't think it'll become commonplace to go, like, outer space, like into deep space, but
like Mars is not. Does you count Mars as near here?
I mean, I think that yes, that will be possible, but to go really deep into space, like that won't become commonplace. I know we're even thinking of, I don't know, I think there's a plan to create this large tower that actually goes into space. Yeah, the elevator that goes into space. So it will become commonplace. And probably a lot more safe to go into space as well by the time I would become an astronaut. So I just think it would be really cool and amazing. And I think when I was deciding careers, I told myself, well, I'm just going to go for one of the hardest jobs in the world. And I landed on astronaut.
Why?
I don't know, it combines everything I love, like physics and space, and I wanted to really challenge myself and push myself to the limits and see how far I could go. So why not go for something as crazy as becoming an astronaut? Why not see if I have what it takes and if I could do it? You know?
It's always good to have high expectations and
land maybe somewhere a little lower.
Land lower, but what you've landed on is
still really good.
It's very, very good.
Shoot for the stars and then you'll land somewhere pretty good.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very, very nicely put.
Thank you.
So what would you want to do on the International Space Station? So you said biophysics. So would you want to investigate different life forms and how they behave in space?
Yeah.
See how... So I'm just recalling what I've read on what astronauts usually do in space, depending on their specialty.
Right.
How artificial organs behave in space. What would you want to work on specifically? Or would you just want to do everything and just see how it goes?
Maybe the thing is, I'm not exactly sure exactly what I would want to go into. Like, I have the general direction of physics and biophysics, but I'm not exactly sure what I would want to contribute, you know, by being on the space station, but definitely investigating, like, biological molecules, outer space, or I shouldn't say outer space, like, life forms from different planets or whatever, investigating celestial objects as well, but I don't really think that's what they do on the ISS.
Well, maybe you will.
Maybe in the future. You know, becoming a part of the mission to Mars would also be very interesting. I know that we want to create a habitat on Mars, and it'll be extremely difficult because, you know, there's talk of establishing an atmosphere on Mars, and as Elon Musk put it, there's you know, the conventional way of doing it, and then there's the shortcut. And the shortcut is basically just nuking the ice caps in order to create an atmosphere that has CO2 in it. So that's like the shortcut.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So I mean, there's all this talk of, you know, establishing a colony on Mars and how we could create our own atmosphere, because, you know, right now it's absolutely not livable. It's freezing on Mars, but our blood would boil if we were to stand on it without a spacesuit. So definitely not livable conditions for us, but there are possible ways that we are thinking of, you know, creating an atmosphere and, you know, making it habitable for humans. So that would also be very interesting to work on as well. Yeah.
I like that. I feel like every human at one point in their life has wanted to be an astronaut.
Yeah, as a little kid.
Just to see how everything looks like. And as Carl Sagan put it in his famous poem, Earth is but a blue dot in the distance. It's really just a little thing that becomes obsolete the further away you delve into space. So it's nice to just leave where we've existed our whole lives.
But it's also very scary.
Very dangerous. Because we're meant to live on Earth, and that's it.
Yeah, I feel
we're not meant to be doing this other thing.
Humans definitely like to play the role of God, and I think push the limits sometimes because, you know, I don't know if we're supposed to find the answer to all these questions we have. Like, I don't know if we're meant to know these, and who knows, maybe it's better to know the truth about the universe, but maybe it's also better to live in ignorance.
And deal with the uncertainty.
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about.
Yeah, definitely.
Very well. So who are your biggest inspirations in physics?
My biggest inspirations in physics, and this might sound kind of typical. I think everyone knows who this person is. If you had
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking.
Love that old man.
I know, right?
He's so cute.
He is, or he was, I guess we should say. But I mean, I loved his...
Rest in peace. Sorry.
Yeah.
His soul will live in our hearts.
It will, definitely. I loved his movie, or I loved the movie based on him, Theory of Everything. I love to read about him. I even did a project on the Grand Unified Theory and the Theory of Everything. And,
me too.
and you know, his theories are extremely brilliant. I don't know if we could ever create them. I don't think we can create a theory of everything, but it's very interesting to look at. I mean, he was the one who I think really propelled the idea of black holes, with his Hawking radiation and everything. So, yeah, I have a lot of respect for him as a physicist. I really like, again, he's also very famous.
Neil deGrasse
Tyson, yeah.
Tyson.
Yeah, I love Neil deGrasse Tyson as well. Like, I'm just reading one of his books right now. And, yeah, it's awesome to read about his perspective on everything. And, yeah, he's definitely a very brilliant person.
And he's extroverted. Most physicists like Hawking, yes, they were outward about their research and everything, but they were a little bit more into themselves.
It's easy to be, and from what I've seen, being in a STEM program, you do tend to meet, some more introverted people. But then again, you have people all over the spectrum in STEM nowadays. I think back in the day, it wasn't necessarily cool to be into the sciences, but now people don't really care about that. Like, they tend to go for what they want to go for. So I think that whole stereotype of nerd who's into math and physics, that doesn't really hold true so much anymore. But yeah, I really like Neil deGrasse Tyson, especially because he can articulate himself very well. And he's also doing things that I'm interested in, like going on TV shows and discussing astrophysics and, talking about space. That's also something that I'm interested as well, because think about it. I mean, how do all these movies based on space exploration and aliens, like, where do they
come from?
Yeah, where do they get these ideas from? Like, they have to consult astrophysicists or physics people, in order to make it scientifically accurate. So it's also a really good career option to go into as a physicist.
And it's a revolution right now because the media more than ever needs to focus on, again, facts and not fake lies. So scientists should have a huge presence in media. And policy making and all that. But that's another discussion for another time. But I think that image of not just being a scientist who's stuck in the lab and just churning out research papers, but one that's going out, making fun shows, talking to kids, talking to adults.
It makes it more enticing for people as well. Like, I think it makes physics and math and whatever more relatable and more attainable to people, because a lot of people are really scared of physics and math, but there's genuinely nothing to be afraid of. For the longest time, I was scared of math, and I never thought I was good at it until I really gave myself a fair shot, and then I started to do exceptionally well, and then I'm like, hey, if I can do it, anyone else can. Like, I went from being a really bad student and not doing well in school, and then I decided, you know what, I need to give myself a fair shot and try. And when you have that belief in yourself and that intrinsic desire to do well and to understand the concepts of math, you can do it.
And it's contagious.
Yeah, there's nothing to be afraid of in math and physics. Anybody can do it. A lot of it also has to do with the right teacher and the right professor. And if you have an awesome teacher that can explain it to you in a way that fits your learning style, then it's definitely possible to do well at it and to understand it. Yeah.
And oftentimes, our generation especially looks to the internet for mentorship and teaching. So these big figures who otherwise in any point of history would have been inaccessible to us unless we went to our local bookstore and picked up the latest, version of Scientific Digest or whatever, wouldn't have access to their content. Now it's readily available in each person's home where they can just tune in to Masterclass, which is what we talked about before, or YouTube, and have this great thinker right in front of them. Inspire them and teach them about concepts in such a different way than the normal monotonous way of teaching in education, which really discourages a lot of people because it makes the content seem so boring when it really isn't.
It does, when people are just reading it out loud, not trying to make it fun at all. And I'm blessed to have had amazing physics teachers. Like, one of mine, his name was Mr. Cure. And even during Christmas break, he came in for hours and set up all these really cool demos. Like he created speakers out of Solo cups, and he created his own DC motor, all of these different really cool stations, and it just made physics so interesting. Like every day during class, he would make us get up from our seats and do something as a class, and we would have to like physically move, and it just makes physics that much more, like you said, relatable. Yeah, and it makes it easier to grasp, you know? Yeah.
And it's important to cultivate those really good teachers and provide them to everyone.
Yeah.
That's really the key here.
Yeah.
I think, that's a very good point. Very nice.
Absolutely.
So besides those two, anyone else?
I think I also have a lot of respect for my astronomy professor. I mean, he's not a physicist, but in order to, have your PhD in astronomy, you have to
know your stuff.
You have to have taken physics all throughout and, be really experienced in physics and super well versed. I mean, even in his office, he has tons of books on physics. Like he even had this book describing like moment of inertia. So, you have to know your physics.
Casual read.
Yeah, casual read, right? Just a nice light read. It was like all the different types of moment of inertia, how to calculate moment of inertia, all that type of stuff. So I also have, a lot of respect for him. Like he's in his 80s or 70s, and he still has the passion for teaching it. And yeah, I think he tried to make it really fun and interesting for us. I know he's really interested in spectroscopy, I don't know the right way to Spectroscopy, thank you. So
Spectroscopy.
Yeah, so when he, was teaching that subject, he was really passionate about it, and I really admire that. And after class, a bunch of us would always go to his office and be like, have you heard this theory about space? Or have you heard about planet X, this hypothetical planet, that's in our solar system, but we can't see it, all these different questions that we had for him. And he would, stay and explain for like, half an hour, 45 minutes. So yeah, it made the learning worthwhile to have a really good professor like him.
Yeah, very, very nice. I think more than ever in my life, I was always dismissive of a teacher's role. I was kind of like, whatever, they'll teach it to me, but I know myself. I can learn it by myself. I don't need anyone.
Yeah.
But when I really was met with very good teachers and professors, I was just
blown away,
dumbfounded by not only the mental model that I built for myself and lost out on opportunities with other teachers, but just the insights and passions that they have were incredible. And their passions translated onto me and sparked something that I didn't think I was even interested in. So you're definitely right in that regard. And that's why those two figures like Stephen Hawking and Neil deGrasse Tyson, we all feel so connected with, even though we've never met them. But they've helped us see something that we all inherently just are in love with, which is the existence of the universe and our beings and all that stuff. So people are underrated sometimes. So where do you see yourself in the future? That's a nice time travel question.
Right. Hopefully in the future. How far in the future are we talking? If you had to put a timeline on it.
90, like grandma. Yeah, grandma.
Oh my God. Okay.
Talking to your grandchildren on a nice Sunday evening with snow outside and you drinking hot chocolate and telling them your life story,
Right. Okay.
It's a nice
it is a nice image. I think, when I'm 90 years old, if I even live that long, I really hope to live on a nice quiet ranch close to the lake and have a bunch of animals, but I will have hoped that I can reflect on, the amazing career I've had and the life I've shared with wonderful people. And I hope to have been, an accomplished physicist or something along those lines.
What does that look like? Like a Nobel Prize?
Oh, okay. Wow.
Research. I know you said you like to investigate dark energy.
I think a discovery.
You want a
A
discovery?
discovery.
Okay.
Yeah, if I could discover something, or if I could discover what dark matter is exactly and create a precise definition of what it is, or even define it mathematically, that would be amazing. I would be quite happy with that. Yeah. That, or just, any discovery related to space or physics or science, I would be really happy with,
So with that being said, a life like that or a goal like that would probably foretell a future where you'd be in a lab a lot, you'd be reading a lot, you'd be doing math all the time, and all of that. So do you still think that process, or feel, obviously we won't know now, but you will know in the future, but do you feel like you'll still be excited doing that, 1,000th math problem or 1,000th equation or all of that? Do you think that's appealing to you at this moment?
Yeah, definitely, because I think, we have to have something that keeps our brains young and keeps our brains thinking. And, I want to live a long and healthy life. And I know in order to do so, you constantly have to be training your brain and doing math. I think, constantly doing it really allows your brain to keep that sharpness about it. And, it definitely helps with longevity. And I think because I have the intrinsic desire to make a contribution, I would be motivated to keep doing that stupid, annoying 1,000th calculation.
That's admirable.
Yeah.
So with that being said, this perseverance, which advice or what advice would you give for future physics students coming into the field?
I think, going into physics, I think you have to be sure that you like it and you have a genuine passion for it, because I don't think it's something for the faint of heart. There are a lot of people who drop out early on just because, it's not like it was like kind of fun in high school, but then it starts to really ramp up and get hard, and you have to have a passion for it in order to tolerate that and tolerate and enjoy the amount of work that comes with being a physics student. I think that's part of it. Like, make sure you really enjoy it, because again, you're in university. You should also choose something that you're passionate about and that you love to do, because this is the rest of your life, and you spend way more time at your job than you do with your family and doing anything else. So you have to love what you do and have the passion for it. I'd also recommend, read the lecture slides before class, ask questions, participate in in-class things, raise your hand whenever you can, do all of the homework, constantly review, all of the advice that people give you in terms of studying habits, definitely apply those to physics. And physics is just practice, practice, practice. Like, it's not a memorization-based course. It's practice and doing the calculations by hand. Just practice a lot and get the help when you need it. And, you should be just all right. Like, you should be, sorry, that came across weird. You should be just fine. Yeah, you should be just fine if you do those things. And I think it also helps if you have a good study group as well. Like, for my physics exam, we would do this thing where we went on mastering physics, and we would select a problem, and then one person goes in front of the board and solves it, and we're watching them solve it, and then we take turns for each problem. And then if they get it wrong, we'll look at it and be like, okay, where did this person go wrong? And try to figure out what exactly happened. So, also having a study group really, really helps as well. Just stay on top of your stuff, stay focused, and you should be, more than okay. Yeah.
In terms of the work ethic, did you find, so for me personally, I feel like with physics, you have to have a almost visualizer tool when you do the problems. And by that, I mean
diagrams.
Really just, diagrams, but not only that, just closing your eyes and seeing the event unfold in front of your eyes.
Yes, I think spatial awareness and, having creativity and being able to imagine the scenario. Like, when I'm dealing with a hard physics problem, I do a lot of the time close my eyes and think about it, play the scenario out of my head maybe 5 or 10 times. Then I'll draw a diagram. If the diagram doesn't look right, redraw it. Draw it until it looks right. Label all your forces. Include all your givens. Look at the equations that involve the variables that you're given. And then you piece it together like a puzzle. But definitely being a visual person and creativity really, really helps for physics problems. Yeah.
I really like that aspect of physics because it's an intersection between very analytical things, but also creativity in the way that you see the problems. That's very nice.
Yeah.
So what have you found are the benefits of studying physics in everyday life, or along the lines of, do you have a unique look on everyday things? Like a good example would have been when we were driving on the highway the other day and we were discussing the speed limit and how engineers have built banked curves in highways to account for safety with different car velocities. So how do you see the world in that regard? Do you see the little free body diagrams of things falling from buildings?
Strangely, I do. Like, I see stuff falling, and then, you think of like, oh, what is the terminal velocity of that object? Definitely driving on the highway, the banked curve, like sometimes when I'm driving on the highway and I see a curve, it kind of scares me and I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to have to slow down. Like I'm going so fast. But then I'm like, no, like the highways are designed in this way so that you can keep going fast while turning. And then I'm making the turn. I'm like, yeah, I don't, really have to slow down making this turn. Like it's fine. They're engineered that way. So for sure, banked curves, like with banked curves, we all know that the force of friction is what allows us to move forward versus, sliding back when we take a step. So, force of friction is one component of the banked curve, but then we also have a horizontal component of the normal force that allows us to keep moving forward. So that's why they engineer banked curves, to have that additional force help us move forward and to keep driving. So yeah, definitely the highway, when you walk, force of friction, maybe doing tug of war with someone, maybe thinking about Newton's third law, action and reaction forces. When I'm pushing against a wall, I don't know why I would be pushing against a wall, but maybe I'm doing wall push-ups or something. And then that's also action, reaction forces.
Isn't that Newton's second law?
That would be Newton's third law.
What's the second law?
Newton's second law has to do with acceleration. So when you have an external net force acting on an object, it can accelerate.
Isn't that the first law?
First law is more of inertia. So an object in motion tends to stay in motion, and an object at rest tends to stay at rest. And it also deals with inertia. Newton's second law has to deal with acceleration and unbalanced forces.
Oh, okay.
Right? Unbalanced forces. So external forces, pushing an object, driving it to move. And then Newton's third law is action and reaction forces. So, for every action force, there's a negative reaction force. So while the magnitudes of the force are the same, we know the acceleration is extremely different depending on the mass of the object. So, that kind of explains why when you push on a wall, you move a lot, but the wall doesn't move because look at its mass compared to the mass of a person's arms pushing on it, right? I'm trying to think of some other everyday applications. I mean, literally everything in this room, everything is an application of physics, really. Oh, another one is, if you're spearfishing, spearfishing.
I casually spearfish.
I mean,
out and about, Canadians, we go out in a boat. Out in a boot, and we go spearfishing.
Right. Not that we would just be randomly spearfishing, but when you're trying to catch something in water, you have to understand that the way it appears isn't its actual location in the water. So we're dealing with refraction and Snell's law now. Yeah, just everything is an
Everything is an illusion.
Yeah.
What do you think about simulation theory? Just as a quick question.
Simulation theory?
Do you think we are in a simulation?
I personally don't think we're in a simulation.
No?
Just because that would be really morbid.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't think we're in a simulation though. I'd like to believe we're not in a simulation, so I'm not going to entertain that possibility.
I will
really.
entertain that possibility.
You
very
entertain
openly.
that. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Could be what if, well, multiverse aside, parallel universes, all of these could be possibilities.
I mean, sure, why not entertain the possibility? But I think for me, it would just be devastating if that was true.
Why?
I'd like to think I'm the only version of me, that exists. I think first of all, I wouldn't want to see another version of me. Like, if I had to look at that, like, ew.
Well, there are 7 doppelgangers in the world that look like you. See, again with the number 7.
7.
This is coming together.
7. It's all making sense.
The 7 conspiracy is coming together. But it's true. There's 7 apparently doppelgangers.
I've heard that, yeah. But I just, it really honestly creeps me out to think that there could be another version of me somewhere out there. So I just
living a different possibility of your life.
Yeah. So I just, why would I want to entertain that idea? Yeah.
Fair, I suppose. After exploring more physics and astronomy topics in university, what topics or phenomena are you curious about right now?
Definitely for me, dark matter has always been my area of interest. I really find the concept of dark matter interesting, and the fact that we know so little about it, yet it dominates everything, and it's all throughout the universe, and there's way, way, way more dark matter than just regular matter. It's like we gotta figure out what this is, I find that extremely interesting. Space travel, wormholes are also very interesting.
Time travel.
I mean, we have been able to time travel. It's just, it was such a small amount of time.
The quantum computer
incident? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was such a small amount of time that at this level, we can't make time travel something commercial, and we can't travel back to a place in time like of our own choosing or even that far. So
but would we even want to do that? Because that would change everything.
I don't think that would be a good idea.
No.
At all.
Just leave the air of time as it is.
Yeah.
If we can change it.
Would not be a good idea, I don't think.
So dark matter and dark energy. What about anything else? Black holes are always interesting.
Black holes are definitely super interesting. I think also, technology, definitely. The telescopes that we're building now are just incredible. Like, we have, what's it called? I just did a project on it, and it's the telescope that basically spans the entire Earth. The Event Horizon Telescope.
Wait, what? What is that?
The Event Horizon Telescope. So we have a bunch of different arrays that are spread all over the universe so that we can use the Earth as our base, the entire Earth as our base.
Oh.
So it can cover more area. Yeah. Pretty interesting. And we've imaged SGR-8, or I guess Sagittarius A.
The black hole.
I don't know. Have we imaged Sagittarius A? I know we have the image of M87. Like, that's the really famous image that we've all seen. I don't know if we captured the image of the black hole at the center of the Milky Way. I don't think we've done that yet. But with the Event Horizon Telescope, we captured that really famous image of the light. I think that image is like the light, or it captures the event horizon
with the light warped.
M87. Yeah, light warping around the black hole. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah, so the technology that we're developing is also a really interesting area to go into.
And not only that, but physics itself has evolved from just working with equations and hypothesizing things, but now it's really involved computer science and simulations and all those kinds of things. So you probably, when you're done with your schooling, you're going to be exposed to so many more fields within physics that did not exist before.
Yeah.
That's very exciting to look forward to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so that was all the questions, and now we should end off with a fun activity to do live. And that would be NASA's Astronaut Aptitude quiz, which tests your knowledge of physics, your logic, and lastly, How you would react when faced with various life or death scenarios. Are you ready?
Hopefully. Oh God. Are there any calculations in this?
I don't think so.
Okay, good.
Okay, question number 1. If an object is in motion, what kind of energy does it possess?
I think that's pretty obvious, kinetic energy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
What does the C stand for in this famous equation? Charge, carbon, speed of light, or density?
Speed of light.
Yes. Okay, these are pretty chill. What cannot happen to energy? It can't be destroyed.
It can't be destroyed.
It can't be transferred.
It can't be destroyed.
It can't be stored. Or it can't be dissipated.
It can't be destroyed.
Isn't dissipated kind of like destroyed?
Dissipated doesn't mean destroyed, though.
Okay.
It's almost like evaporation, right?
What is a nebula? A young solar system, a cluster of stars, a cloud of dust and gas, or a type of black hole?
A cloud of dust and gas.
Okay. That is correct. Round 2. Now this is logic. Okay. Planet, Mars. Fabric, flexible, denim, trousers.
What?
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 You want to be an astronaut? NASA requires this of you. I will repeat the question.
The fabric of Mars?
So
I'm going to go with flexible because nothing else makes sense.
That is incorrect. It is denim.
What?
I don't know.
I do not understand that question.
Oh, no, I understand it now.
Do you?
A type of planet is Mars. A type of fabric is denim.
What?
A type of fabric is denim. They don't relate to each other, but it's showing you the pattern of what the thing is.
Okay.
Get it? Get it?
Yes.
Infancy is to nursery as adolescence is to youth, high school, or teenager.
Oh, God. What the hell? Okay. Infancy
is to nursery as adolescence is to blank.
I mean, infancy goes along with nursery because as an infant, you have to be nursed. As adolescence is to high school, I would say.
I would say that too. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So far you've got all of them right. We're at number 7. Threatening, growl, blank, rainbow.
Okay, so a growl is threatening, a rainbow is colorful.
I think I would say that too. Yeah, that's right.
This is very interesting.
Yeah, it's logical testing. Medicine, illness, and now we have 3 possibilities.
So this is study. It's like a topic of study within medicine.
Yes.
I guess.
Medicine.
Hunger, thirst, love, treason.
So law, anarchy, hunger, thirst, love, treason.
Illness leads to the use of medicine. Mm-hmm. Anarchy leads to the use of law or to the need, or what am I trying to say? If there's anarchy, you require a law then to settle that.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. Round 3, psychological screening. You discover a fire on board the space station. What's the first thing that you do? 1, you grab your oxygen mask. 2, call mission control. 3, try to extinguish the fire. Or 4, sound the alarm and leave.
I think you would try to extinguish the fire at first.
So that's your answer?
I mean, what do you think?
No, that's your answer. I can't influence you.
You can influence me. I mean...
I would personally say grab the oxygen mask because you need to be alive and then you would call mission control.
Yeah, but, I mean...
If you try to extinguish the fire...
If you're in a fire for a prolonged amount of time, that's when, all the carbon monoxide gets to you and you can get poisoned. Like when the smoke is poison, or what am I talking about? When the smoke is toxic. But if a fire just starts, you better put it out as soon as possible so that doesn't happen.
No, I'm just trying to see the parallel in airplanes. Whenever there's a thing, you always wear the oxygen mask because you're going to faint. Not only, you're in space, bro. Think about it. You're in space and there could be a leak somewhere and then you need that oxygen because you're running out of oxygen.
I think you would try to
extinguish the fire. Okay, we're going to go with that. That's wrong.
What?
Oh, the answer was sound the alarm and leave. Sound the alarm and leave where?
That's a good question.
Leave
I guess
where?
leave to a different area. Like, obviously, there are doors that will close and, like, you know.
I thought leave like the whole area, but okay. You're trapped in a lift with 10 strangers. People are starting to get panicked. What should you do? 1. See if you can work out a logical way to get everyone out the lift. 2. Close your eyes and stay calm. Help is coming. 3. Attempt to calm down the people who are most distressed. 4. Start screaming loud.
I think it would be 3. Attempt to calm down the people who are most distressed.
Okay, we shall check. And that's correct.
Yeah.
I would have said the same as well. Okay, 11. During a mission to the moon, you and your crew crash land 200 miles away from the mothership.
The
mothership of Russia. You have to walk there. Apart from your oxygen tank, what's the most important thing to take with you? 1. A box of matches. 2. Signal flares. 3. 20 liters of water. Or 4. First aid kit. I mean, 200 miles away.
That's really far.
It's signal flares, 100%.
But also water. I think, but how?
From your oxygen tank. So this comes to us being out there for a long time or us getting rescued fast by using the signal flares. It's
not a box of matches.
Definitely not that.
Definitely not that. I think it might be 20 liters of water because in this scenario, you have to think about the most immediate threat to you, and water is the biggest threat, I think. But then again, I feel like it's either that or maybe signal flare.
That's true.
Okay, water, yeah.
That is true. Okay. You've discovered alien life on Mars and brought a sample back to the ship. What should you do next? 1, send it back down to Earth.
This is so easy, I think.
Okay, well, number 1, send it back down to Earth so it can be tested in a laboratory. 2, isolate it, ensuring it has no contact with the crew. 3, immediately begin tests. Or 4, call mission control.
I think you would need to isolate it as your first step. Definitely isolate it. And then call mission control. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay, yeah.
You're right. Round 4, NASA general knowledge. Which NASA space shuttle exploded 73 seconds into its flight?
I think that was Challenger.
Killing all the astronauts on board.
I'm pretty sure that was the Challenger.
Challenger? Will you challenge that answer?
Oh, God.
We will see. And that is correct. Awesome.
I remember I've seen the video of it, and it's just absolutely devastating. I think seeing that video is what kind of scared me about becoming an astronaut at first. Yeah.
Well, it is a possibility, so. Which was the first Apollo mission to successfully land on the moon? Apollo 10, Apollo 11, Apollo 12, or Apollo 13? Oh, God.
This is definitely something I should know. I'm going to go with Apollo 13.
I posted this on my story.
Did you?
Yeah.
Is it Apollo 13?
Well, is that your final answer?
Maybe it's Apollo 10? I don't know. Apollo 11? No, wait. Apollo 13? 13? I don't know.
It's 11, I know.
It's 11.
It was on my story.
I'm sorry.
I showed you. I took a photo of the Apollo 11.
As an astronomy student, I probably should know that.
All right. So, well, you're before the last question. I mean, I think you've got all of them right except for 2. So we'll see. What is NASA's motto? For tomorrow's future, to infinity and beyond, for the benefit of all, or onwards and upwards?
I feel like it's onwards and upwards. Okay. I mean, that sounds right to me.
Isn't to infinity and beyond Buzz Lightyear?
Yeah, it's definitely not to infinity and beyond. It's not for the benefit of all.
To infinity and beyond.
I think it's onwards and upwards.
And that is incorrect. It is
for the benefit of all. Huh. Wow. I did not think it was that one, did you?
Me neither, no.
That's insane.
Actually, maybe. I thought onwards and upwards, which was cool.
It sounded kind of right.
Last question. How many astronauts can live on the International Space Station at once? 6, 10, 15, 20.
I think it's 15. I think. I'm scared.
Does this include the Soviet side? Right? There's the American side and the Soviet side.
I'm not sure.
A Russian side. Okay, so 15?
I think it's
6.
6.
No, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's look at the results. You got 11 out of 16. Congratulations. Okay. You have what it takes to be an astronaut. With a bit of training, you'd make a worthy addition to the International Space Station.
Wow, thank you. Yay.
So now we know
that was an awful quiz.
You're set for being an astronaut.
Right.
Alrighty, well, thank you very much for being my guest, Miss Martine Campbell. It's been an out of this world experience talking to you. So I have one last question for you. Why did the sun never go to college?
Let me think about that. Because it already has 1,000,000 degrees.
Okay. People always cheat on this question, but okay, I'll give that to you.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay.
So that is time, everyone. I'm Yasmin. It's 1 a.m. And now get out of my space. Should we end off with?
Yes.
May the force be with you. Bye.
Bye.
To end this special segment off, I think it's important to thank past physicists for all the work that they've done, and a good way to showcase this gratitude is through a very famous physicist, Carl Sagan's rendition of the pale blue dot excerpt. So I'll just read it and hopefully you enjoy. Look again at that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines. Every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on a mote of dust suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit, yes. Settle, not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another, and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known. Carl Sagan, Pale Blue Dot from a Vision of the Human Future in Space. Thank you, and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.